Welcome to Amplify, the personal brand business show. Today on the show, Bob is speaking with Julie Stout.
But what you find, if you can reprogram all your neural pathways to just operate from here. And it just is strengthening and strengthening and growing. And everything that happens, no matter how bad it is, you're like, oh, cool. This is, you're like, that's meant to happen. And it's just another nudge in the direction I should be going.
Hi there and welcome back to the Personal Brand Business Show. My name's Bob Gentle and every week I speak with incredible people who share their secrets to building, marketing and monetizing their expertise, intentionally growing a unique personal brand and the mindset you need for your business to grow and thrive. While you still have whatever device it is in your hand, take a second to subscribe. That way you won't miss a single episode. So we're all in business and we're all doing things that are unusual. They're difficult. They're not what normal people do. These are things that in Harry Potter you might consider being in the magical kingdom. And the thing with wizards is they're not doing what other people do. They're doing things differently. And that requires a bit of creativity. And creativity is probably one of the hardest things business owners experience. So this week, creativity is going to be the main thrust of the conversation. And in that, I am delighted to welcome Julie Stout to the show. Julie, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me.
So you are my creativity mentor, so to speak. There are lots of people I look to as experts in different flavors of the things that are important in business. And creativity, I think, is when I speak to clients. In fact, I'll tell you, I have a Facebook group. And when I bring people into the Facebook group, I ask them, what's your biggest barrier? And there are usually three barriers. One is technical stuff. The other one is productivity. And the third one, which is usually dominating, is creativity. People struggle with ideas. But before we get too far into this, can you maybe just start by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you do?
Yes. So I am an entrepreneur. I have been in business for 23 years. And I have a marketing agency, and we were a full service marketing agency, but now we've really, really dialed into just this one single lane of creative SEO. So we are phenomenal at getting people to number one onto Google. And then we bring in this whole thing of creativity to, one, keep you there, and then to increase your conversions, to increase the visitor engagement. So that's what I do in my business. And then in my personal life, I've taken the concept of getting out of your head, spending more time in the flow, getting connected to your creative nature, and then applying that to all aspects of my life. And I've had, with all of this, the creativity is kind of the key to success. It's the ability to have not just one, but thousands of ideas, and to be able to be connected to this, what I call your sixth sense, this fifth dimension, this place that all these ideas come from, and be able to turn up the volume on that, and then just be able to be happier. That's the only way to describe it. Like, it just feels good. Like there's no problem you can't solve. So, and then you just really tap into how to get more success using creativity. And that's what I teach through my podcast. And then we also teach it to our clients too. So
what's really interesting is SEO and creativity are not usually words that you would experience in the same sentence. And I know it's unfair to say that, but I'll qualify it anyway. I think SEO is something that people often think of as a very analytical activity. And that might be fair. That might be not. That might not be fair. But I think it's a reality that most people look at SEO and think that's a very technical activity. That's not necessarily an area where creativity comes into it. So can you maybe sort of lean into that a little bit and focus on,
sure,
in terms of SEO, What does that normally look like, and how do you approach it slightly differently?
So historically, like creative agencies have not been great at SEO. It doesn't, again, that art and science doesn't mix very well. And so typically they outsource it. So SEO is done by a third party expert in that field. And the SEO companies aren't very creative. You know, if you have your SEO company build a website for you, you probably aren't going to be happy with the results. So we've taken our marketing agency, all that creativity, all that, you know, what would develop these ads that emote you, that move you, this copy that makes the audience engage and do all this. And we've blended it into our SEO. So we've got this human pull, this human element, this engagement, you know, that an SEO team wouldn't normally bring into the mix. And then we are constantly doing experiments. So we're using creativity for, let's try this, see how Google responds. So we've got the science of like hypotheses and measuring impact metrics and results. And then we've got the, how do we move human beings to do what we want them to do, which is to engage, which is to have an emotional connection, to have all these things that in marketing we want people to do what we want them to do, which is ultimately turn into an order, a purchase, an RFQ, or a lead. And then the science of using creativity, of using these other elements to get there. It's like a new field.
For the listener, briefly, I'm going to reassure you that this isn't going to be a really boring interview about SEO, but I do have a couple of questions that I think will be interesting to the listener. As I listen to you just now, what I'm hearing is a lot of people approach SEO in terms of how can I get people to the website? An SEO company will usually look at that their job is to push traffic at a website. What happens once they get there is your problem. And what you're describing to me is, yeah, we take responsibility for A, getting people to your website, but B, we're being as creative as we possibly can in order to facilitate those people taking the actions that you as the business owner really wish they would. And traditionally, an SEO company isn't taking any responsibility for that, which I think is in itself a very creative approach to the SEO business, because at the end of the day, that's where the ROI is. SEO in and of itself does not generate revenue. Sales do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what we've always focused on. We were a bit different. So we only take on clients that we know we can be successful with. You know, we look at the competitive landscape. We look at the equity in the website. We look at, and that would be domain authority, all those typical metrics that you would measure a website by as their success to get to the top. And we only take on the clients we know we can get to like 1, 2, 3 on Google. And then it's so the getting you to the top of Google is not the issue. We know we won't take you on unless we know we can get you there. But it's really, can we get you the type of business that will move the needle for you, help you grow? You know, can we get you the leads, the inquiries, everything you need to be successful and successfully grow? And then that's where the science is. I mean, the creativity comes in then. And the thing about creativity, and it's really understanding creativity. So, you know, why you have a favorite song, why you have a favorite poem, why you have those like Super Bowl commercials. Why do Super Bowl commercials work? Because when something comes from that creative part of us, from true creativity, the raw flow of creativity, people are just drawn to it and they see it in themselves and they connect with it. And anytime you can capture that, and anytime you can have someone connect with that creative part of themselves, it just does things. There's this, that's the magic. That's the magic behind the scene, because it's beyond what we know in our heads and what we feel. It's beyond any of that. It's this creating this thing from this special place connects with this special place in someone else. And if you can bring that into and you can do it through humor, there's lots of different ways you can do it. But if you can bring that into your marketing, if you can bring that into the webpage, if you can bring that into the journey you're trying in the website, you're trying to take the customer on, then that's where it all starts to come together and happen. But it takes the creatives to think, like, to come from that place, because the SEO people are very analytical. They don't think like that. So it's like a true collaboration between the two.
I think in an agency environment, being able to balance the work as organically as that is going to drive an awful lot of success for your clients. I can absolutely see how, I don't know if it's unique, but it's definitely unusual. I haven't seen anybody, and I know you fairly well. So for the listener, there's lots of questions that I could ask here to really go deep and qualify this. But I've done that, and I understand that your agency is doing things quite differently. And I don't really want that to be the thrust of the conversation today. But trust me, if you need SEO, Julie's a really good shout. However, what I do want to talk about is how we can all tap into this creativity. So you'll have experienced this many times. I experience it all the time, where people will talk about wanting to be, for example, more visible on social media, but they can never come up with an idea to post, or avoiding opportunities for public speaking because they can't think of anything to speak about. And what I know is, in the same way that unless you've got a physical disability, anybody can teach themselves to run a marathon. By the same token, anybody can teach themselves to become creative. It just needs process and exercise. Some people have natural talent, that helps, but that's not a prerequisite. So how do you approach creativity and working with individuals and teams in order to help them discover their own creativity?
So we teach this. We have a Creative Fuel boot camp, and it starts with the foundation is brainstorming. So the idea is that there's another place you can go other than being in your head to generate thoughts. And so it's that, and it's simply the non-judgment zone. So the idea is that it works. You can do it individually. You can start practicing, we say, based on the experts and in brainstorming, basically 2 minutes a day. You have like a little egg timer that kids would use to brush their teeth with. And you just flip it over, and 2 minutes a day, you go into idea flow. And it's very much like meditation, where you bring your mind back to center. You bring your mind back to center. And you're just starting to make lists and lists and lists and lists and lists and lists and lists of, like, and it can be anything. It can be a problem you're having with a spouse. It could be your partner. It could be, a problem you're having with a coworker. It could be, you need more money or something to do this, or you're any problem that you're facing right now. Just start making lists of crazy, wild, out there solutions. But the idea is to just keep training your mind to be in this space of connected to ideas and wisdom, and that flow of like intelligence from somewhere outside of where we don't know where this is from, but that flow of intelligence that's coming in, this wisdom. And just not get back in, don't get back in your head. As soon as you start saying, oh, no, I could never do that, or it's because of this, right? Any judgment, either judgment about the situation or the what's going on, or the other person, any judgment, you're not there. You're back in your head. So the idea is to just spend 2 minutes a day in this non-judgment zone and start to build this connection. And it's usually really good. There are tuning forks, like things that will get you connected with it. So a shower, like being in water or around water, is a connection to this. So doing this, either start it in your shower and then start taking notes when you get out, or right after you get out of the shower, just take 2 minutes to start writing down ideas. And that starts like jump-starting the connection. And then it works even better, ideally, with teams of 4. So you start taking all the problems at work, everything you face in your business, and then start to flip it into opportunities. And you brainstorm everything. You bring brainstorming into every aspect of your work. And then what happens is you find you start to, and then, start to understand how your brain processes thoughts. You're basically just view your brain as a TV set. Everything that happens, everything you're experiencing within your body, everything that's happening outside of you, it's like a TV set. And it's just reflecting everything that's going on into thought. And then imagine you've got like an angry newscaster, depending on how your thoughts are processed. You might have every thought is loving, wonderful rainbows and butterflies, or you might have this angry coach that's like sad and grumpy, or you may have this angry newscaster where everything is doom and gloom, and everything that comes into your head, all the thoughts you process are everything has a negative spin to it, And then you realize that it's all just thought. Everything, your whole experience of life and world is the thought processing. And then when you understand that, that thought triggered this release of chemicals in your body that made you feel sad, happy, whatever, it's all just a processor of thoughts, and it's designed to keep you alive, fight or flight, anxiety, worry, got to take care of the kids, got to find food, all that primitive programming. And when you realize that, I don't have to live in this world, that actually I can spend more time in this world with this idea world. And then you're like, all of a sudden it just flips, everything flips. And you move from this space of being a victim, like everything's happening to me. I live in this world where, I can't control anything, to you move from victim to creator. And all of a sudden you just see success, everything around you starts to change, and you just like everything's an opportunity, and you just embrace problems. You love problems, and in the workspace, you love problems, and within teams, you love problems because it's a chance to flip to an opportunity. And again, we call that creative flips, and we love it here. We love obstacles. We love things that are wrong, and we all focus on, and then trying to be as creative as we can and try to tap into this place and try to spend more time here. And it's really fun. It's really, really fun. So it's a huge explanation.
Well, it is a big explanation, but I think it's a surprisingly big topic that people don't fully appreciate.
Yeah.
As you were speaking, I was making notes of a few areas that really jumped out for me. And the first one was the basic idea of brainstorming. It's a very basic idea, but it's extremely powerful. And I don't know if you've read it. James Altucher wrote a book called Choose Yourself. And it's a book that's really written from the perspective of how to pull yourself out of difficult times, I guess. And there are 5 daily practices that he encourages. One of them is essentially it's a very structured form of brainstorming, but it's an activity that you do every day. And he talks about having these little restaurant menu books and using a restaurant menu book because it's so disposable, because the principle here is these are not ideas that you're going to keep. It might be, for example, what are 5 things that I could do with a pen every day that don't require me to write anything. So you have to think of 5 ideas for something you could use a pen for other than write. And then when you're finished, it's gone. But what that's doing is training you to be foundationally creative. But it's also doing something powerful with the unconscious, which is creating this totem in the physical world for the ideas that it's supposed to create for you. So you're training the unconscious to provide what you've told it is important, which reminded me of another podcast guest who said something to me which has never really left me, which he talks about the unconscious being the genie in the lamp. The genie in the lamp wants to give you anything you want, but you have to tell it. You have to make the wishes.
Yeah.
Most people never do this. And the brainstorming practice that you're describing can lead to you being able to instruct the unconscious. This is what's important to me. And as you've described, things just start happening because it's coming from the unconscious or the superconscious.
You're absolutely dead on. And that's another element that I didn't say. It works better too if you put it out there before you go to sleep. Say, hey, I'm going to work on this problem tomorrow. And your subconscious goes to work all night. And I just read a book by Finian Kelly. It's a new book called Intentionality. And he talks about the idea of scientific manifestation. Uses the same principle, which is, what do I want? And you put it out the night before before you go to sleep, and then your subconscious works on what you want all night long. It's like this magic, like you said, the genie in the background. It's the same concept. It's how to use all these things that aren't mainstream, but they're very much, you can prove them, so it's really exciting.
I think there's another aspect to this, which is, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but my older son went to art school, and I'd always admired the way artists develop ideas. And we look at a piece of sculpture and we think that's incredible. And we have this fantasy that just popped into existence. The artist knew in his head exactly what he wanted to create, and he just went out and did it from start to finish. It doesn't work like that. It begins with a little sketch, and the sketch sits in the physical environment for a little while, and it's triggering the artist, and they'll come back to it. And maybe a week later, there'll be another sketch. And again, that sits in the physical environment. And then a week later, there might be another sketch, and then the artist has an inspiration. And we think that inspiration came from nowhere. It didn't. It came because they allowed the idea to emerge over time in a physical space. And if you walk into any artist's studio, before they produce any piece of work, there'll be dozens of sketches that maybe existed over a period of months. And I see authors doing the same thing. I see content creators doing the same thing. But in business, we think things need to be different. In business, we think we have to have an idea that emerged out of our head fully formed. And if we can't do that, we're a failure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that word failure is brilliant. Like we need failure. Failure is like you follow anybody, like any of the great minds ever. It's all about the failures to get to the successes, but you don't view them as failures. You see them as building block, baby steps, as like that fermenting of ideas that you're talking about in the background. It's using all these tools. So, but it's when you start to get into this, you don't ever see it as failure. You see it as one step closer to the opportunity. Everything is flipped to the positive because it's such a positive world when you're in the true creative world. It's so positive. So it just is different. But what you find if like you can reprogram all your neural pathways to just operate from here. And it just is strengthening and strengthening and growing. And everything that happens, no matter how bad it is, you're like, oh, cool. This is, you're like, oh, this is, that's meant to happen. And it's just another nudge in the direction I should be going. And, everything is really positive. And it changes everybody around you. Absolutely. Everybody around you is transformed by this.
I think that transformation is something that I would like to explore in the context of your clients. So when you're working with an organization, typically, what does that organization look like? And then very practically, outside of the traditional agency work, so the more consulting workshop style stuff, practically, what does that actually look like?
My sweet spot. I was a marketing manager in manufacturing for 10 years. So these are people that build or offer a service within manufacturing, and then they sell it. And so I am really super comfortable in chemicals and metal and rubber and plastics and all the stuff that this area of Ohio is surrounded by. And I'm really comfortable in that. So the idea of having creativity in manufacturing is totally new, of doing something interesting with blogs, and it's all very new. But the more we talk to, and clients, we're just starting this now. We started this 6 months ago saying, hey, we're not going to do what we did in the past. We're going to do something really different. We want to, and we're, now finally our clients are like, okay, we're willing to try it. Okay, we're seeing success. This is different. This does make sense. So it's taking something really boring and trying to make it really interesting. And they're responding to it positively. But the biggest change has been everybody, we would have monthly client meetings with all our clients, and everybody like groaned before they went into the meeting, like, oh, we've got to have another meeting. Oh, I've got 5 Zooms on me. And I'm like, this is not the world we're living in anymore. We're taking everything that I know and we're applying it to the business. So what we focused on these last couple months is making our client meetings really fun. So we've like sandwiched the fun in there. We've brought fun into the meetings. We've talked about success. We're talking about opportunities. The language we're using in our client meetings is the same language that I'm using. And it's all very positive. If there is a negative, we immediately flip to an opportunity. If there's a competitor that's dominating, we're like, oh, we make it really fun and gamify it. And the clients are responding now. And then we're like, okay, now we want to try this CTA, and now we want to try this, and we want to try things that are different. And we're getting them to open up. And, we're like, this is a different type of email. You've never done anything like this, but we want to try it. This is more creative. Instead of just saying, this is what you do, this is more engaging. Let's try something different. And they are starting to trust us in what we're doing. And so it's just starting now. We're having success, but the question is, it's just been dealing with obstacles. So let's say they lost their top position on Google. They went down to number 3. We used all the creative tools we know now, and we got them back to number 1. Now we're saying like, okay, can we try this? Can we try that? Can we try the other? And now they're just opening up to the success of what we can do. So it's still like infancy, but it's the whole relationship with the client has changed, and the whole client trust of what we're doing has totally changed. And the results they're getting make them like, okay, I can see this. I want more of this. But we're still experimenting.
Well, as you're speaking, I'm reminiscing over clients I've had from my agency days, and my agency days were dominated by oil and gas and engineers and really technical people. And these people were really smart, but it wasn't that they weren't creative. They just didn't value creativity the way that people might traditionally, and there wasn't the trust for the inherently creative. It's a difficult thing for me to articulate, but as you were speaking, I was nodding my head internally thinking, I know exactly the kind of people that she's speaking about. These are the kind of people who, where they put a data sheet together, expect that data sheet to communicate with the client exactly why this product is the best product and that therefore they should buy it. And why don't they? And it's your fault as the agency. Whereas that's just not how people work. Just because you have the best product for the best price does not mean people will buy it. And doesn't mean Google will reward you for being the best product either. And these are not people who will naturally welcome an unstructured approach to building the kind of stuff that you're describing. I'm feeling a little bit inarticulate.
But it's baby steps. So we started with just, can we make them smile? Like these are very serious people, very serious. And you get these business owners and it's all about this is working or it's not working. And everything's very serious. So we started with, can we make them smile? Can we elevate the meetings and be more positive? And we loosen them up, just loosening up the meetings, and just having more fun and having more, getting connected with that fun, curious, that kid in you That's what we're trying to pull out, is that kid in you that wants to play. And we're like, okay, we are going to have more success if we can bring this into your marketing. Your customers are going to respond to it if you can make them feel like this again. And so but it's working, because now they're like, I look forward to this meeting every month. This is my most favorite meeting of the month. This is what our clients are saying. And these are these boring, serious people. So it's working, you know? And did they go with the ads that we said to go with? Not yet. Not all of them, but they're starting to see the potential, and they're starting to trust that what we're doing works, because they're seeing the numbers and they're seeing the success. And then we're just kind of building on that. So,
well,
our goal is to attract maybe non-manufacturing companies that are looking for something like that. But our space has been for so many years manufacturing. So we do have some hospitality customers, and we do have a few B2C, but most of what we do is B2B. So
I think when you know how to be particularly valuable for a particular kind of person, it does make sense to lean into that rather than try and dodge it and spread yourself too thin amongst people who don't, you know less well, and you bat far less effectively. I'm curious. So I know you have a podcast. I know you're working on a book. I think it would be interesting for the listener to maybe hear a little bit about that and how they can maybe begin to follow you, your work, and be inspired themselves to perhaps be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, sure. So to find the podcast is Creative Fuel for Underdogs. So you can search that title, or you can go to my website, which is juliestout.com. And the podcast it's my journey. So it's my experience with this. I discovered this about 10 years ago, and it's a lifetime of discoveries, like knowing there's something else going on here and just really understanding what that is and how to use it. And then how to bring it into every aspect of your life. So like right now we're working with my husband. He's getting grumpy old, and it's how to reverse aging, how to use creativity to reverse aging. And that's our big experiment we're doing at home right now. And he's loving it, and his friends are loving it, and they're really enjoying it. But it's about taking something that, this grumpy old intolerance of change and everything, and just completely flipping it to where you're making fun of it, you're laughing about it, you're seeing it in yourself, and then you're having so much more fun instead of being this ingrained grumpy. And so we're working on that. So it's taking it and using all aspects of your life. So, one of the biggest first experiments was my kids. Can I unleash them? Can I get them to achieve their full potential? Can I overcome all the crazies that happen in my upbringing, And can I fix my parents? And all these things happened absolutely wonderfully. So I fixed my parents. I unleashed my kids. They're both doctors now, and they're not just doctors, but they're doctors like the ones palliative care hospice, she's dealing with end of life, and the other one's emergency, and she's dealing with keeping you alive. And they're, and like I said, my husband, I'm unleashing the potential in him to be happy as he ages and love how he's aging instead of this, mental trauma of it. And then, fix my parents. And so the podcast is going through, one, how to do this, what it's all about, why this is so simple, and how to use this to just in all aspects of your life. And then how to, get richer friendships. And like with my husband, what you find is as the grumpier you become, the more isolated you become, because no one wants to invite you. No one wants to be around you. Everybody, you're abusing waitresses. They don't want to invite you out to lunch and stuff. So it's like, and so for him, it's building this network of friendships. And how, as you go older, can you get back to where you're a little kid, like making friends everywhere you go. Everybody you meet could be a potential new best friend. And instead of that, you're not like me, in that isolation so it's reversing aging. And there's just so much I've done with it. And in my kids, in their work, it's all about innovating, because there's so many problems in the medical system. especially here in the US, it's terrible. And there's so many problems in the ER. There's so many problems everywhere. And it's like, bringing the spirit of innovation and improvement into what they're doing in their workplace. And how can we come up with creative solutions to solve these fundamental problems that we're facing over and over and over again in their work environment? So it's not just me, it's all the impact on the people around me. And so then that's the book. So the podcast is that journey and all the crazy, crazy things that have happened to us and how this is just happening so quickly now. But then the book is about building the happiest workplace in America. So it's going through my journey of horrible workplaces that I've worked in, where horrible leadership in manufacturing that was just really bent on, just really abusive of employees and just really tearing them down. And then, the journey through learning about emotional intelligence in leadership, learning all the keys to leadership, and then really taking everything I'm doing in my personal life and applying it in my company. So and again, building the happiest workplace in America where all the employees are engaged, they're empowered. My vision was that you would have no Sunday crazies where you're just dreading going back to work on Monday morning. That I wanted to flip the story. I wanted to flip the scenario where you can't wait to get into work. Can we build a workplace where you just can't get to wait to get in there? You love the impact that you're having. You feel like you're making a difference. And can you have this amazing workplace? So it was this experiment, and yes, and yes, and yes is the answer. And so, and even with the boring stuff, can you make a difference with, selling plastics and selling rubber and selling chemicals and things like that? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. And it's all about culture. And it so really dives into what does this look like? How do you build a creative culture? How do you build engagement with employees? How do you build ownership with employees? And then how can you make them love what they're doing and coming into work? And bottom line is you can't make anybody do anything, but you can set up the foundation, the scenario, you can set up the accountability, you can set up everything, the structure for this to be successful. And so the book is all about that. So,
as you're speaking, the phrase that comes to mind is one I can't remember where it came from anymore, but somebody once said to me, "When you grow, your business grows," and that creativity, positivity, humility, these are very expansive qualities. These are the qualities of life. They're the qualities of growth. And the opposite of that is the contraction, things sort of becoming dead, becoming still, becoming stagnant, zero growth. In fact, the opposite, we're seeing decay. And psychologically, we have states of expansion and we have states of decay. And as we age, as you described, we will naturally move towards mentally contracting, both in terms of our attitude and our interest and things like that. And having processes to counter that or to facilitate re-engaging the expansive qualities, both as we grow and as we move into what's actually quite a difficult environment as entrepreneurs and as leaders, where people will more naturally contract. Having systems to facilitate that is very powerful. I think this is perhaps why you're drawn to those industries, because those are industries that are more naturally prone to the contracted state, if you like.
Yeah.
And they will find that very refreshing and exciting, I imagine.
Yeah, because it's a problem-based business. All you're doing, especially as an entrepreneur, you're just solving problems every day, and you feel like all the problems are yours. And like I said, we go all the way back to Deming, and this is not new. Brainstorming in business is not new, but we can take it a step further. And building that ownership of process improvement, building that love of problems and this spirit of we love problems, we embrace problems. It's a chance to do brainstorming, to feel good, to flip to opportunities, because there's this there's this movement when you do this from this negative to a positive. You're flipping everything to a positive. And then it's a culture built on positives instead of a culture built on negatives. And it's just a fundamental shift. It's a foundational shift. But everybody's about problem solving then. And everybody's about ownership of, instead of, hiding problems and, doing subpar work and things like that. They're, it's about that pride. One of the episodes I just recorded is about the joy of work. So, and the joy of hard work, which post-COVID, we've had this like resentment to hard work. It just came out, like it's come out more than we've ever seen it before. And the Amish here in the US, they teach their children, the number one fundamental value they teach their children is the joy of hard work. And this feeling of pride and accomplishment and satisfaction. And instead of this mental drama of, I've got to do this, it's so much work. It's, I love what I'm doing. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. It's embracing the positive aspects instead of leaning into the negative mental aspects of it. So it's changing the way we feel about what we have to do every day. We have to work. Let's not make it miserable,
So if people want to go deeper with you, they want to find out more about you, what's the easiest way to do that?
Go to Julie, Julie, Stout, Stout, like the beer, .com.
And Julie, what's one thing you do now you wish you'd started 5 years ago?
Talking about this. Yeah, I just built the courage to actually say, I'm not crazy.
That's a very good answer. Julie, thank you so much for your time. You've been an awesome guest. I've really enjoyed myself.
Thank you.
And that does bring us to the end of another episode. Thanks to you at home for listening. And if you did enjoy the show, then I would gently encourage you to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts and to share the show with just one person. If you did enjoy the show, you will love the Personal Brand Business Roadmap. It's everything you need to start, scale, or fix your expert business. Just click the link in the show notes or visit amplifyme.agency/roadmap. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you again next week.